I swore I wouldn't do any long, complicated cases tonight because this is my second recording I'm doing tonight in an effort to make up for missing yesterday and the day before. And then when I pulled up the handy-dandy internet, I saw the name that everyone knows, and as basic as it is for me to cover him here, when I typically pride myself on picking less talked about cases, I couldn't resist. So today, we discuss Charles Manson. Oh hey, by the way, hello all. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, boop that subscribe button and the bell and the thumbs up. Do the things, please. I will continue to do the song and dance if you just do the things, please. I'm not nearly as bad at this as I was 2 weeks ago, and if I keep getting actual support behind me, I might really be onto something here. So, yeah. Otherwise, I'll just assume I'm terrible and go hide under a rock. My name is Ashley Robin, and I am a true crime buff who likes to sit with you all and discuss murder and stuff by night, and an artist by day. Coming on here at the end of the day and talking to you guys feels cathartic, like writing in a journal or talking about something I heard to a friend over a smoke. That might be pathetic, but I appreciate our little time together each day, and I hope I can continue this series. Comment and let me know if you want to see it continue too. This is True Crime Time Hop, Episode 12. Warning, the following content may be disturbing to some audiences. If you may be triggered by talk of violence, murder, and mild references to racism, please exit the video now and prioritize your mental health. Viewer discretion is advised. Charles Manson was born to a young teenage mother named Kathleen Manson Bauer Cavender née Maddox on November 12, 1934. What a freaking mouthful. His father was never really present for him growing up. In August of 1934, right before her son was born, Kathleen married William Eugene Manson, a laborer at a local dry cleaner. They were divorced on April 30th, 1937. This was mostly due to the young mother's drinking. She would often go on drinking binges with her brother Lucas, and on August 1st, 1939, they got arrested together for assault and robbery. Charles's mother was sentenced to 5 years, and he went off to live with his aunt and uncle. Kathleen was paroled in 1942. After that, she went back to a life of drinking, and she had more brushes with the law. They moved to Charleston, West Virginia, where she was charged with larceny, but she was not convicted. Then they moved to Indianapolis, where she met an alcoholic at an AA meeting and decided to marry him. When Charles was 9, he decided to set his school on fire. He also got in trouble for truancy and petty theft. He was placed in the Gabalt School for Boys in Terre Haute, Indiana, which was a school for male delinquents run by Catholic priests. Dun dun dun. There, beating students was normalized for even the most minor offense. He ran away and was living under bridges, in the woods, wherever he could, until finally he fled home to his mother in December of 1947. She made him spend Christmas at his aunt and uncle's, and then she took his ass back to Gibalt. I can almost guarantee I'm saying that wrong, but oh well. If you know how to pronounce it correctly, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, 2 months later, he ran away to Indianapolis, where he would go on to commit his first crime. In 1948, he robbed a grocery store when scavenging for food. He found a cigar box that had around $100 in it, and used it to rent a room on Skid Row and buy some food for himself. He tried to work a normal day job and keep his nose clean for a while, but he soon fell into the habit of resorting to petty theft to supplement his income. It didn't take long before he was caught and sent to Boys Town, a Nebraska-based juvenile facility. There, Manson and a fellow resident obtained a gun and stole a car to flee after he was only there for 4 days. The next time he was caught, he was sent to Indiana Boys School. Charles ran away 18 times over the course of his stay there. Boys in the facility raped him, and staff encouraged it. In February of 1951, he and 2 other boys escaped together. They were caught driving a stolen car over state lines, and Manson was sent to Washington, D.C.'s National Training School for Boys. He was evaluated there, and it was determined that he had a higher than normal IQ, but was illiterate and aggressively antisocial. Manson was transferred to a minimum security institution named the Natural Bridge Honor Camp, where he was being considered for early release into his aunt and uncle's care. However, he was caught taking sexual advantage of a young boy at knife point the month before his parole date was scheduled to take place, and it was subsequently revoked. He was moved to the Federal Reformatory in Virginia, where he committed several acts that required disciplinary action, including 3 instances of essaying other boys. He was then transferred to a maximum security reformatory in Ohio, where he behaved so well that they released him early to be placed in the care of his aunt and uncle. And I need to pause this for just a moment to air out my grievances, because let me tell you what, I was already more behind than I have been the whole time since I started this series. It hasn't been that long, but it was a pretty long commitment for me so far. And I'm so mad at myself for choosing the most complicated case so far that I've researched for when I'm already behind, because there's still 3 more pages of typing. Stick with me though. So Manson got married in January of 1955, then they left the state in a stolen vehicle and he went back to jail. His wife stopped showing up for visits after a year and moved in with another man, and ultimately she filed for divorce. I say good on her. After that, it was just a whirlwind of pimping and extorting young girls for money and getting caught on attempted forgery charges. He got himself a 10-year suspended sentence after a tearful plea from a sex worker named Leona. He later married her by the end of 1958 so she wouldn't have to testify against him. He then took his new bride and another woman to Mexico to pimp them out, and he wound up being detained and questioned for violating the Mann Act. He was indicted for violating the Mann Act in April of 1960. Then, one of his girls was arrested on prostitution charges, which led to him being picked up in Texas and returned to sender as he was extradited back to LA to serve his 10-year suspended sentence for violating his probation. During his incarceration, he learned how to play the guitar, and Leona filed for divorce against him, and I say good on her too. His scheduled release date was to be March 21st, 1967. He asked to stay, however, because by that point he had been institutionalized for over half of his 32 years of life, and he didn't know how to fend for himself in the real world. Honestly, that's kind of sad in my opinion. After his release, Manson began to amass followers that hung out in a pack with him. They were mostly women, and he referred to them as his family. He and this ever-expanding family of his spent their days doing LSD and meth, and it was under the supervision of criminology doctoral researcher and federal probation officer Roger Smith as kind of a fun little experiment Smith was conducting, I guess. Manson continued to form a cult-like following, enticing social outcasts with drugs and unconventional sexual practices. He basically programmed his followers to submit and obey without thinking twice. By April of 1968, he had accrued 20 members in his circle of supporters, all under the supervision of his parole officer. The Manson family, as they came to be known, developed into a doomsday cult, heavily convinced that the world was in danger of an imminent race war. Manson was a white supremacist. He convinced his family, who heavily relied on him for knowledge of what was happening in the world outside, that black people were going to rise up in America and kill all the white people except for him and his family, and that they would not be able to survive in this world without him. He told them they needed a white man to lead them and wanted them to see him and treat him as their master. In 1968, he adopted the term helter-skelter later that year to describe his idea that there was an impending race war. He got that from the White Album by the Beatles. On August 8th, 1969, followers Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel went to 10050 Cielo Drive in LA as per Manson's orders. His specific demands were that they go there and destroy everyone inside as brutally as they could. Inside, a very pregnant Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, Washish Frykowski, and Abigail Folger, and caretaker of the property William Garrettson were having a little get-together. As the group staked out the house outside, headlights approached up the driveway coming towards them. Watson blocked the car off from entering the property any further and slashed Garrettson's friend Stephen Parent across the hand, severing tendons and the band of his watch. Then he leveled a .22 caliber pistol to the victim's chest and let off 4 rounds, killing him. He ordered his accomplices to help him move the car off to the side, then they proceeded with their break-in. First to be made aware of the entry was Frykowski, who asked Watson who he was and what he was doing. Watson replied, "I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's business." Frykowski was then stabbed 51 times and pistol-whipped 13 times until the barrel was bent and the butt broke in half. Tate begged to be spared, offering herself as a hostage in an attempt to save her unborn baby, but she was sadly stabbed 16 times. Everyone in the house was slaughtered except the property's caretaker. In Tate's blood, they wrote "Piggy" on the wall in an attempt to tie it to another murder and throw investigators off of their trail. Manson was not happy with how the murders were carried out because of the chaos and messiness that was involved. So he took the 4 murderers out with himself along with Leslie Van Houten and Clem Grogan the next night. They approached the Los Angeles home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, and soon both were being held captive at gunpoint, tied up inside. With a chrome-plated bayonet, an ivory-handled carving fork, and a steak knife, they stabbed both victims to death. Linda Kasabian told prosecutors everything in order to be spared, and after that she disappeared for 40 years. It wasn't long before Watson, Manson, Atkins, Van Houten, and Krenwinkel were all locked up for their participation in the murders. And on this day, January 25th of 1971, Manson and his 5 affiliates were found guilty of first-degree murder in all 7 of the Tate and LaBianca killings. And his story goes on and on. There are portions of his timeline that I completely skipped over, and there are details that I definitely omitted for the sake of brevity. If you would like a deep dive, please comment below and say so. I can also go into the detail of his and his accomplices' deaths and how they happened and stuff. Just let me know, and otherwise, take care.